Look, if you really want the powers, you're going to have to say the magic word. Here's a look at the McFarlane Toys, DC Direct, Dawn of DC, Page Punchers, Shazam. The Clubhouse of Eternity, homicidal worms, talking tigers, atomic robots, alien worlds, sinister curses, and villains from throughout the DC universe. Welcome to the wild adventures of Billy Batson, whose big red alter ego defends the Earth from its weirdest and wildest threats. When Gargoz, Emperor of the Moon, sets his sights on Gorilla City, that's when you shout, Shazam. 6-letter word that means summon some magic. I got nothing. What I do have, though, at least, is my tape measure, as we're about to find out just how tall the Page Punchers Shazam. Oh, actually, it was Shazam. Oh, wait, no, there's an exclamation mark on the end of it. Drat. Let's take, though, the tape measure and see how tall the Page Puncher Shazam actually stands. And then, you know what? We'll bring in maybe another Shazam for comparisons. The figure's going to stand at 7¼ inches in height, or Billy Batson's going to be about 18½ centimeters tall. Well, I do have 2 Shazams. Technically, I have the movie one as well, which I don't know where he is at the moment. So I guess I'm not wrong to say I have Shazams in my collection. From a size standpoint, though, the Page Puncher's not only is a much more vibrant red, but he's considerably taller as well. So what does this Batson offer up other than a bigger figure? Well, being that he's also a page puncher, he also comes included with a comic book. This was Dawn of DC with one magic word, Shazam, and it's also issue number 1. I like the artwork, though, that they have on the front, and there's a classic-looking Shazam or Captain Marvel, if you prefer, in the background there as well. If we just flip through the comic, right away you're introduced to Shazam riding on top of what looks to be a T-Rex. Already have me interested. Flip through this, and you can see actually like the artwork that they give is pretty good here. A classic looking Shazam as well is treated here on the back, or on the inside of the cover. He also is playing bowling, so he's doing all the things that kids would still do. He's also playing video games down below. Nice comic. I'm looking forward to reading through all of this. There's also an advertisement on the back for DC Universe Infinite, and also here as well, DC All-Star Special. Let's put the comic to the side. It does also come included with a trading card. The trading card does have no matching at all to the cover. Sometimes they've done that in the past, I think, where Page Punchers have come included with comics, and then the actual trading card has a similar image. This time around, though, we actually get Billy Batson just flying through the city streets. Wait, does that look like a giant crocodile in the background? Uh-oh. I think he should be flying towards that, not flying away. He's probably going to be circling around. The back of the card, though, is a pretty good read-up. Gives enough of at least the backstory of what exactly Billy Batson has to deal with on a daily basis. His real name is Billy Batson. Probably have said that a couple of times already. Nice looking trade card. Move that off to the side. Figure does also come included with a display stand. Not much new to report here. It's a circular black display stand. Still has the DC logo. Still has the peg. If you were to check off all those 3 things on your clipboard of what would be an identifiable black stand: circular, DC logo, and peg. All 3. So this, of course, can be useful when it comes to attaching onto the bottom of Billy Batson's boots. Figure does also come include some swappable hands. So right now he has like flying hands. If you don't necessarily like the look of that, because it just looks like he's got like jazz hands. I don't do that nearly enough in these reviews. Jazz hands. If you don't like the look of that, though, and you like the look of these instead, the figure does come include some closed fists. Good for punching. In fact, to show you what that looks like, go ahead and not to punch people. I don't want to show you guys what it looks like to punch a person. You never want to punch a person, ever. I mean, sometimes, okay, no, I'm just going to say, put me down for never punch a person. If you want to swap out the hands, though, it's pretty easy to do. You just basically pop the hands that he has. You don't have to make the noise while you're doing that. And by the way, there's the pegs, there's the holes, simple shapes. Just to plug the 2 together. Now you got yourself Billy Batson with closed fists instead. If you want to have a more stoic pose, a heroic pose, that's a good looking set of hands to be using. Oh, that looks nice. While he's also standing heroically, the one other included accessory that the figure has as well is the little chain piece that connects that front of his cape to the other side. Kind of meet in the middle. I guess they've done that as a separate piece. If you choose, maybe, like, for example, you don't want to have this necessarily on Captain Marvel or Shazam. I personally like it on the figure, but I guess they gave you the option if you didn't want to have it on him. If you did want to put it on him, though, what you need to do basically is get this around the back of his cape. So also clearly, though, you can see that he's got a high collar here. So basically what you have to do is you just take this piece, fit it around the back of his collar. I suppose you probably could also have gone the option of heating the head, but you can see it's pretty easy to do. Then just kind of move it off to the side. get it to the point where you want to have it, and then sort of just bring down the cape. That's all you got to do. That's all you got to do. Simple. Not simple shapes. Simple to do. There's no way to actually peg that in place, so unfortunately, though, it's going to be a bit loosey-goosey. It's going to move around a little bit when you're obviously posing the figure around. Again, you can have just the choice to leave that off if you want to. I think it adds a little something to him, and it honestly, as well, like if I don't have a place to put this, it's only just going to get lost. I mean, I could lie to myself and say, oh, no, I'm going to put it in a secret place, a little drawer with all my other accessories. Who am I kidding? This thing's going to get lost if I don't put it around his collar. But I do think it adds a little something to him. You just want to make sure, though, you have it kind of low. It's always, unfortunately, going to be riding up the back of his collar. I guess that's not the place you're going to be seeing anyways. You're going to be looking at it from the front. What's also from the front is the sculpting on Billy Batson's face. I get with what they were going with here. They were kind of going with more of like a golden age look to Billy Batson, where like Shazam has more of the squinted eyes and the big smiling face. I like it. The only thing I would say, though, is I feel like the head's a little too long. If they took this idea and they squished it a little bit, so maybe like, for example, his head was only like that big, I think the same head that he has or the same face that he has would have worked just as well. With that being said, though, it's a good-looking head sculpt. I feel like maybe it's a little too long, that's all. The rest of the colors for his body, already mentioned, though, are a lot brighter. I don't even remember which Shazam this was. I'm sure somebody could let me know down below. Going away from the idea of having like more of a ketchup red, which this Shazam clearly has. I like more darker of the red that they've given the body. This one also benefits too by being a later release that he now has a fabric cape. The fabric cape not only has a wire along the top of his collar, so you can bend that the way that you want, but he also has a wire running down the sides of the cape as well, and along the bottom, so you can get that in the pose that you want. Of course, he does have the emblem there on the front. I was actually expecting this to be raised, like they would have sculpted it over top of his body, but it's not the case. Unfortunately, what they've done now instead is they've just printed it in place, which I guess is not a bad thing at all. The thing that's kind of interesting also about Shazam is that if you've already seen my review of the comic Christopher Reeve Superman, notably, though, is that Shazam's got these larger joints that are connecting the part of his forearm to the part of his bicep. They're much larger, though, it seems only on the DC Direct releases of these, and I don't know why they're not using the same hinges where they're not as big as what we're getting here. In fact, like looking at this, and if you looked at my DC, well, the Christopher Reeve Superman, the comic Superman, yeah, it seems to be using the same style of joint, really overly large. It's got the gold gauntlets there down below as well that match nicely the trim that they've given the cape. This part, of, obviously, for the front of his belt is a much brighter yellow. He's also got bright yellow down below. I wish that they could have maybe met somewhere in the middle. I mean, I like the gold and I like the yellow. Maybe if they made the yellow just a little bit darker. I feel it's a little on the brighter side, but at least one thing, though, it does match the colors of his boots. For the figure's articulation, though, Shazam's head is going to be on a ball joint, so of course it allows the head to rotate all the way around. The head can look up and look down, and you can also move it back and forth as well. As for his arms, they rotate all the way around. You can also hinge them out at a T pose if you prefer. The figure does also have a swivel in his bicep, a double hinge on his elbow, although with this figure it was really, really tight, and it still continues to be tight. I could probably heat it up. It's not bothering me enough to really do much with it. I mean, it's still enough that I can do stuff with the elbow. I can also do stuff with the hands. You can rotate those all the way around and hinge them back and forth. Upper torso is going to be on a ball joint. Further from that, the figure does also have an abdomen ball joint. The legs split out about that far. You can take the legs and, in fact, move them forward. Move them back. It's a swivel there at the top of the thigh. Double hinge on the knee. Which sometimes this actually gets all caught up. You probably already saw it for yourself. Like, when I bend the knee all the way back, it seems sometimes that I have to fight it to get it back in place. In fact, you can also see it ends up popping. Not that it pops the joint out completely, but it doesn't make it straight, so you always have to kind of go in there and fix it again. He has no boot swivel, by the way. Kind of thought that he might, but he doesn't seem to be. He also has an ankle pivot, an ankle rocker, and would you believe as well, the figure does have toe articulation as well. Is he a perfect-looking Billy? No. I mean, I feel like there's good indicators here that this figure could have been a perfect had they maybe made a few little allowances. What I do like at least, though, is that, first of all, like they gave him the extra cape string. So if you wanted to leave it off, you could leave it off altogether. I actually prefer to like to have it on the cape myself. It does mean, though, that when you are kind of moving the figure around, that little strap here, the little string piece, does kind of shift around a little bit. And it's not the perfect around the back of his body. Obviously, you can kind of fold down the collar and hide a little bit of that. The color of the yellow is good. I know in the comics also too, like the belt coloring and the boots are usually generally brighter anyways, and he's got the gold accents around it. The only thing I would say really is, while I do like the head sculpt, I just kind of wish it was a little bit more narrow. Squishy face, squishy face, squishy face. I wish it was a little bit more narrow. Maybe about like the same size as this version of Shazam, but I do think that there's enough changes certainly made to this one that the Page Punchers is a superior looking Shazam to the previous one I've had sort of as my stand-in Shazam for this whole time, sitting on my shelf. Now, I lucked out finding Page Puncher Shazam. I was on Amazon, and while I realized that they were having a markdown sale on a lot of their DC Multiverse figures, Page Puncher Shazam, even though it's listed as DC Direct, was also marked down as well. I think, in fact, this guy was going down for like $23. And knowing that I already wanted an updated Shazam in my collection, this guy was added to the cart right away. All in all, though, it's a better looking Shazam than the one I've had as a standby for this time. The colors of the red are a lot brighter. The yellows certainly are a lot better as well. And that this guy also now is part of that time frame where McFarlane's kind of shifting the focus over to fabric capes. So at least he benefits from having now a fabric cape. Some may actually find it frustrating, though, that the little string that he has on the front of his cape has to be a separate applied piece. I guess they've still done that, though, so if you choose you didn't want to have it on the figure, you can just leave it off altogether. I prefer to have it because when I think of Shazam, I always kind of think of that cording that he has connecting the two parts of his shoulder cape together. I like the idea of adding it. It just means, though, because it is a separate piece, it's going to be moving around a little bit while you're also adjusting the figure's stance. The head sculpt, again, is good. I would have liked if they could have maybe given him a smiling mouth as opposed to just kind of like a neutral expression face. I clearly know that they went with the direction of going with the Golden Age Shazam where he had like the squinted eyes. I just think, though, the head sculpt is a little on the long side. Other than that, though, I'm really happy with now adding this guy to my collection. I probably now will be retiring over the other Shazam back into the toast with all the rest of the figures, sort of now get stuck in purgatory, as this one's going to be the definitive that's going to be with the rest of my DC Universe figures. What do you guys, though, think of Page Puncher's Shazam? Better looking figure, or do you still like some of the older Shazam figures that we've gotten from Todd and his team? Again, this one was marked down on Amazon. I don't want to say that it's still marked down and then you guys go over there and it's like, oh, wait a minute. This guy's gone back up to the regular price. You've led me astray. I would never lead you astray, or at least not intentionally. At the time that, again, I bought this guy, he was around $23. I don't think he's going to still be about that $23 price. And that's also in Canadian funds, too. If you guys did, though, enjoy this video, you can do it a solid and throw it a like. You guys want to stick around for more so? I certainly hope so. Hit that subscribe, turn on that bell, and of course come back. As always, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.